that is Unfolding Bunch. Unfolding Bunch by Naoshi Koriyama. It is an interesting poem and very simple poem, Unfolding Bunch, written by Naoshi Koriyama. Naoshi Koriyama is a Japanese poet who studied English literature in the United States and returned to teach in Japan. He began to write poems while he was away from his home and also published 9 collections in English besides 3 translated from Japanese. He has recently published a collection entirely in Japanese. This particular poem compares the flowering of a water lily to the understanding of a poem. It is very simple but rich in its meaning. Poetry is not a drop in an ocean, rather a complete ocean in a drop. With this, let us begin the study of this poem, Unfolding Bunch. Before discussing the poem, let me read the poem for you. Listen carefully for the intonation. One is amazed by a water lily unfolding with each passing day, taking on a richer color and new dimensions. One is amazed by a water lily unfolding with each passing day, taking on a richer color and new dimensions. One is not amazed at a first glance by a poem which is as tight closed as a tiny bunch. One is not amazed at a first glance by a poem which is as tight closed as a tiny bunch. Yet one is surprised to see the poem gradually unfolding, revealing its rich inner self as one reads it again and over again. Revealing its rich inner self as one reads it again and over again. Hope you have heard me reading the poem. So follow the same intonation. Okay. Now, let us go very detailedly into the poem. One is amazed by a water lily. So the poet here tells that one is amazed. What do you mean by amazed? Amazed means greatly surprised. The poet says that one is amazed by what? By a water lily. Let us discuss the poem in detail. One is amazed by a water lily unfolding with each passing day, taking on a richer color and new dimensions. You observe that there are 3 stanzas in the poem. In the first stanza, the poet is speaking about a water lily. It's a flower, water lily. One is amazed by a water lily. So the poet here tells that one is amazed by the sight of a flower, that is water lily. Do you get excited or surprised when you see a flower? Obviously. But there is something very interesting here, that is the process of unfolding of a bunch. Unfolding in the sense the blooming of a flower. Unfolding with each passing day. Do you think that a flower unfolds all of a sudden? Take for example rose. You might have seen the blossoming of a rose. Initially it will be in a stage of a bud, where with each passing day it opens to bloom completely as a flower. When it blooms completely as a flower, what happens? There is change in the color, there is change in dimension, there is change in shape, which reveals its real inner self. Let us move on to the next stanza. One is not amazed. In the initial stage, the poet says one is amazed. Amazed at what? At the sight of a flower, that is water lily. Now he says one is not amazed at a first glance by a poem. So in the second stanza, the poet is speaking about poem. First stanza, he spoke about water lily. Second stanza, he is speaking about a poem. So what is he trying to tell by this? One is not amazed at a first glance by a poem which is as tight closed as a tiny bud. So there is a comparison between water lily and a poem. Initially I told you this poem compares the process of understanding of a poem to the process of blooming of a flower. So therefore here there is a simile, a poetic device that is used. Simile. S-I-M-I-L-E. What is a simile? Simile is a figure of speech which is used to compare two different things. Here water lily and poem are two different things, but still there is a comparison, that is a similar aspects in them. Let us see what is that similarity later. One is not amazed at a first glance by a poem which is as tight closed as a tiny bunch. So he is comparing the poem to a tiny bunch. Okay, tiny bud, I hope you know that the buds are in a closed stage where they don't reveal their inner self. The poem as well, in the first reading, they do not disclose their inner self. Yet, one is surprised. So when we move on to the third stanza, the poet says, yet one is surprised. Yes, obviously we get surprised seeing the poem when. Yet one is surprised to see the poem gradually unfolding. See, the poem also gradually unfolds. It reveals its inner meaning, revealing its rich inner self. How? It reveals very slowly. Gradually in the sense, very slowly, as one reads it again and over again. Unless one reads it again and over again, it does not reveal its inner meaning. So there are three stanzas. In the first stanza, the poet speaks about water lily. Second stanza, the poet speaks about the poem. And the third stanza, where he concludes by telling that there is similarity between the poem and the water lily, that is the flower. What is the similarity? Both reveals its inner self as the days pass on. The flower reveals its inner self as the days pass on, and the poem reveals its inner meaning as we go on reading it again and again. Here also a repetition in the last line as one reads it again and over again. It's an open ending where you can read it again and over again. It is a continuous process where you cannot stop reading a poem. Okay, I hope you have understood this. There is both comparison and also contrast. Comparison is, it reveals its inner meaning as days goes on. Contrast is, once the flower starts blooming, later after 2 or 3 days, it stops its blooming. But whereas the poem is not like that. The poem makes it more and more interesting as you go on reading. So I hope you have understood this poem very clearly. But still, let me summarize it for you. So the poet speaks about a water lily and later he speaks about a poem where he compares both, saying that water lily is a wonderful sight but poem is not a wonderful sight at its first glance. But once you go on reading it, it gives you richer and richer meaning where you can analyze it very clearly. Say for example, any piece of literature, any poem. For the first reading, you don't understand it. When you read it for the second time, the understanding will be better. When you read it for the third time, your understanding will be even more better. That is why we say any piece of literature, in order to analyze and enjoy it, you have to read it again and over again. This is what the poet is trying to give the message for us. So he says, don't stop reading. Read it again and again. So, I hope this poem was very interesting for you.